message posted to Twitter. Okay, good evening. I thought to bring an update. Yes, Channel 4 was going to have, and I was like, talk about a 10-year Iraq War March anniversary. And then later on, we have an update from Nafisa, who's currently in Bangladesh, about the situation in Dhaka. But I thought, anyway, one of our occupiers, Sarah Jubal, was interviewed for the 10-year anniversary of the anti-Iraq War March. This is when about 1 million to 2 million people marched. But of course, we made the mistake of going back home, so that means Tony Blair still went off and had his war. Afterwards, I think he claimed that God told him to go to war. I think Bush said the same thing, something to myself, holy. We have a couple of religious nutballs in our as the leaders. Mistake. But anyway, Sarah Jewel points out that that in the interview, she was actually in the interview, but they managed to pick the most anodyne moments of an 80-minute interview, plus a change, matey. So she's not very happy with the way that the interview was edited out. So anyway, this is the interview for the 10-year anniversary, and we shall see. Hopefully I'm streaming this to so that other people can actually watch it. I think you have to be in Britain in order to watch this first.
I was there in total bad faith with a chip of ice in my heart, writing down some very witty banners, some awful ones, not in my name, struck me as sort of self-loving and vile.
So there was a general feeling of unease in the West and certainly in Britain and in London, communities that I were part of. We had a sense for a long time something was going to happen.
I mean, Iraq was a humongous issue. It was everywhere. It permeated every aspect of society. You couldn't walk down the street without seeing an Iraq war poster, anti-Iraq war poster.
We knew it was going to be absolutely huge because you know from the numbers of coaches that have been booked, from people phoning up from tiny villages in the West Country and saying we've got 2 coaches coming from places that never ever sent a car to a demonstration before.
I remember standing behind the student banner, surrounded by tens of thousands of students, all chanting in unison. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I had my face painted with the Stop the War logo on it, and I was surrounded by a lot of my friends and a lot of other students.
The day we got there, about 30 of us started, and because we were stuck at Gower Street for so long, we started singing, and we were singing quite traditional, quite 1960s influenced protest songs that people could join in on. We were singing Step by Step, The Longest March, Can Do One. Many stones to form an arch, singly none.
Swaffham Women's Choir against the war struck me as right from the heart of a kind of wonderful homegrown English sense of civil society. It was very merry, and I kept thinking, this is too merry. It's a very important matter whether we overthrow a fascist dictator or not. Why is everyone so happy? I couldn't figure it out. But it was very infectious.
Really rich, poor, old, young, right wing, left wing, no wing. Everybody was on that march.
I was at the head of the one coming from the embankment. They met at Piccadilly Circus as the northern one came down Shaftesbury Avenue, and I remember looking over. I was on the front banner of the one coming up from the embankment, and Carrick Alley was on the one coming down from, and there was this just, it wasn't a chant, it was just this kind of howl, an enormous noise reverberating around the buildings as the 2 marches came together and went down to Hyde Park.
When we reached Hyde Park, there was a great sense of camaraderie and of strength and optimism. There genuinely was this air, and you could feel it, that there was this air of optimism.
But there was a feeling, and I remember it well, of intense frustration that only 500,000 people could get into Hyde Park.
The country was not unanimously against it. We mustn't sort of romanticize this march and say it was the whole nation. It was somewhere between 1 and 2 million people, amazing as that is.
The overwhelming majority of people who were on that march were not only morally opposed to the war, but scared of it, that it would open up a different level of danger on their streets.
An enormous number of kitchen table rows. I mean, it wasn't as if the whole country thought that the invasion was a terrible thing.
On Tuesday night, I gave the order for British forces to take part in military action in Iraq.
Hugely disappointing, profoundly, emotionally devastating. That's how serious it was for a lot of people.
I put my heart and soul, and so many people put their heart and soul into the anti-war movement to show the world and to show our government that we were not interested, we did not believe in this war, and yet we weren't listened to.
For me, as a political animal and a community artist, I saw people fall away from direct action from that point, from making their displeasure known, because understandably they turn around and say, well, what good did it do us?
There's a slightly sort of pantomime view of what should have happened, you know, that we should have run up from one side of the stage waving the Stop the War placard, and then all the people in black hats and twirling their badges would run off the other side instantaneously. I never thought that was quite how it would work.
Had we succeeded in stopping the Iraq War, it would have been a turning point in history. I mean, it would have been massively empowering.
If ever I see "and not in my name," I still wince. But no, the marchers, I think, all of their concerns have largely been borne out by history.
Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Mali, now look at the opinion polls, the same figures that we were getting over that day and that march. And it did in the end break Tony Blair's premiership.
If we were to maybe launch another big campaign, for instance, against Iran,
Anyway, there's an article called Inverted Totalitarianism. I'll suggest you search for it on the internet and find out the meaning. Here's another one. This is by Nafisa. She's currently in Bangladesh, and she will talk to us about what's been happening there.
Hi, I'm Nafisa. I'm in Bangladesh. I'm an Occupy London live streamer. The reason I'm sending this message to everyone that knows me through Occupy London, and generally just information that we've heard about a blogger. His name was Shuvo, and he was a blogger who was one of the bloggers who initiated the Shahbag movement we're seeing in Bangladesh, where we saw hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets. And recently they occupied Shahbag roundabout. What the protest did was bring the spirit alive. It was about the punishment of the war criminals during the genocide of 1971. During this genocide, the US had funded the Pakistan army to commit genocide of 3 million people in Bangladesh. And this murder of the blogger has reminded me of someone I saw in the Liberation War Museum, Selina Parveen. She was a journalist. She brought out her own magazine and she wrote about politics and democracy. In 1971, she was kidnapped overnight and her dead body was found in the killing fields where these mass killings occurred. We're seeing our freedom of speech being curtailed, but this is actually, it brings, sorry, I'm really upset because there was singing and this amazing air of revolution. People were so happy out in the streets. And for a while, we didn't have those stories, those headlines of murders and killings. People were united and together. And suddenly, this horrific murder where he was found hacked outside his house. And then looking on YouTube, there's videos where he's speaking, and he was a 26-year-old architect. He was like one of the many Occupy Londoners that I knew. Now this just shows us how serious it is, and how this is an information war, and we need to share information. So if you could please share the information and keep an eye on what's happening, because it's the bigger picture, it's sinister. It's the politics in Bangladesh, and religion is being used as a tool. This Jamaat, they did the same thing in 71. And who benefited? Just think about it. The garments industry, one of the labor leaders who was mobilizing 10,000 people, Aminul Islam, he was taken by the RAB and killed. It's businesses. Hillary Clinton came to Bangladesh. She was meant to be addressing the situation last year, but we found that she was signing contracts, weapons deals, to Bangladesh, $180 million worth of weapons and contracts to train the army and the navy, and then a contract for ConocoPhillips to take over in the Bay of Bengal. And then we've seen Ramu in September, end of September, where 250-year-old temples had been burnt down by this so-called Jamaat group. Like 2,000 people turned up to this peaceful Buddhist town, an ancient Buddhist town, and 14 temples were burnt down. These crimes against humanity, you don't see them in the Western world, but out here you can see that this is happening in Bangladesh. You know, when I was living in Dubai and working in Dubai, I saw how we have modern-day slavery. I saw how there was 20 suicides a month of Bangladeshi construction workers. Wake up. We're living in a sick system, and we need everyone to wake up to it.
Okay, so you saw an example in Britain about inverted totalitarianism. It's where protest and democracy is managed. And from Nafisa, she's in bamboos.com. Channel is Nafi OLSX, NAFFY OLSX. It's about how the government doesn't need to be that sophisticated in order to actually control their people. So the violence is more direct. Whilst in Western democracies, they do other things. They don't kill people on the doorstep, not that many anyway. Not in the recent 30, 40 years. They just end up maybe, I don't know, committing suicide. Or their reputation is destroyed. It's a lot easier that way to manage dissent. Okay, thanks for watching, and hope it wasn't too bad. Peace out.